Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I am back with another lecture for your subject Introduction to Literature 2, and we have been studying about English novel, and after the introductory studies and discussions we have come to the elements in English novel, and so far we have covered the plot and characters, and today we shall see the setting of a novel. What does it mean, and what different kinds of settings do we have in an English novel? So setting is actually, we have already defined it, the time and place of a story. It talks about when and where something happened in the story. What is the place and what is the time of the story? And setting may also be defined as the surrounding or the environment in which a story takes place. And the surrounding or the environment may include social conditions of the story and historical time of the story, geographical locations, the cities and the places, and weather also is a key element in the setting of a novel. Then the immediate surroundings of which are mentioned in the story, and the timing or the time of the story, when did the story take place. And within these many elements which combinedly form the setting of a story, there are three major components, namely social environment, place and time of the story. And all the settings or all the elements of the story are usually introduced in the exposition of the novel. And you might know what exposition is. We have studied it in the structure of a novel. Exposition is the beginning or the introduction of the novel or the story, and you would be introduced in the very beginning of the novel about the setting, about the time and place and the social environment, geographical locations, weather, etc. of the story. Then we have two types of settings. The first one is a simple one which is known as backdrop setting, and the second one is the more elaborate or more important one, and it is called as the integral setting of a novel or a story. So the backdrop setting is usually a kind of setting which is usually timeless. You cannot figure out, you cannot determine or understand any specific time or place of the story. And it is because there is no specific time or place, it would be very hard for you to track or to trace or to figure out any past in the story, the present time or the future time. It would be very much difficult for you. And because of the timelessness of the story, all people, anyone, any child, any grown person can relate to the story. They can feel that, they can understand the story very good, because the story is timeless. It is not related to a specific time or a specific place or a specific social environment. It has a sort of a universal setting. And why do writers use such settings, timeless settings? Because they actually want to focus on the message of the story or the lesson in the story or the theme of the story. So when the message, lesson or theme is more important than the time and place and the social environment of the story, then the writers use such settings, which is known as backdrop setting. And they use it because setting has no specific role or importance in the plot or in the story or in the actions of the characters. For example, you might have heard and read these stories, The Hare and the Tortoise and the Thirsty Crow, etc. So these little stories, these fables, they do not relate themselves, they are not linked to any specific time or any specific place or any specific location or environment, etc. They are sort of universal stories, and in these stories the setting is less important than the message or the moral lesson of the story. The next kind of setting is the integral setting. And as the word integral suggests, integral means important or something which is very much basic to something, and which is a very important part of something. So integral setting is a setting which is very much important to the story or to the novel. And in such setting we usually find a specific or definite time and place where the story is actually happening. So you would easily discover the time of the story, when is the story taking place, and where the story is taking place. And in such stories, the time and place are important to the story, or they are important for the theme or the message or the plot or the actions of the characters. And when these are important, you would be it would be easy for you to find a specific time and place. For example, if there is a story which talks about events which happened before the advent of technology, before the beginning of this technological era or period, it would usually involve characters, and those characters would be riding horses, or they would be writing letters and sending them with pigeons or through mail, etc. They would not be able to easily travel long distances or communicate easily, and therefore such time and place is very much important, because it is affecting the plot and the actions of the characters. Now, a general discussion on the importance of this setting. So settings usually gives context to the characters' actions in the story. And what is context? It is usually the background of something. So you would have a definite background of the character's actions if you have a proper or integral setting. Setting also helps in providing the mood or atmosphere to the story. Mood is actually what the readers feel after reading a story. So if the setting is integral setting, it would definitely influence you and or influence the atmosphere or the mood of the story. And integral setting is also important, because if there is an integral setting, if there is a specific time and place of the story, if the geographical location is mentioned properly, you would be feeling easy to understand the actions of the characters, why a character is doing something, where the character is doing something, and when he or she is doing something. It would be very much easy to understand. And therefore, when the actions of the characters are easier to understand, the plot or that overall sum of or the arrangement of events would be very much easier to follow, and you would be easily getting it in detail and properly. And if we have a look of an integral setting from literature, we have a rather elaborate and detailed example here. The example is related to Emily Bronte's novel Wuthering Heights, and it says that its setting plays a vital role, a very important role in the novel, because it reflects the mood of major characters and their actions, the feelings of major characters, the psychological makeup of the main characters and their actions, and it also contributes to the overall atmosphere or overall feeling of the story or the novel as well. So the novel has this Wuthering Heights has three main settings. The first setting is the moors. Moors is usually an uncultivated and uninhabited place. And then there is Wuthering Heights, it's the name of a place in the novel, and there is Thrushcross Grange, it is another place in the novel. So there are three main places in the novel, there are three main settings. So the moors, usually when there is uninhabited, uncultivated land where there is no human population, you would usually symbolize wilderness and freedom, and as nobody owns them, a moor or an uncultivated land, an open land is the possession of nobody owns them, and everyone can move freely about anytime. And the moors, they themselves are like wild plains, open plains where there is no one, so they are also contributing to the atmosphere of the story or the novel, that they present an atmosphere of wilderness and freedom. And then we have Wuthering Heights, and in Wuthering Heights the weather is usually stormy, there are storms and there are rains, and the atmosphere is also gloomy sort of thing. So the weather and the place is stormy and gloomy, and the characters there which live there and which live around Wuthering Heights are also cruel and extremely passionate. So you can see that there is a link between the atmosphere, the weather of that place, and the personality of the characters. So the setting is helping in developing the atmosphere of the novel. Then we have Thrushcross Grange, and it is almost opposite of the Wuthering Heights. It's contrary to Wuthering Heights because its weather is calm. The weather at Wuthering Heights was stormy and gloomy. Here the weather is calm, and therefore the characters or the people which live there in that novel, the characters are dull and weak. So you can see the relationship between the setting, the place, the weather of, and the geographical location of a place, and the personality and the actions of the characters. Thank you very much.